I'm seeing eyes in the shadows. It started with one eye. The first time I saw it, I was half asleep, lying in bed with my face turned toward the wall. A small, black shape caught my eye, tiny, maybe a trick of the light or a smudge on the wallpaper. I squinted, straining to see in the dim room, and that's when it happened. The dark spot blinked. A tiny eye, deep brown and surrounded by thick lashes, stared back at me. My body tensed, and I whipped around, heart pounding. But when I looked back, the eye was gone. My pulse slowly settled as I brushed it off as a weird dream. I'd probably just imagined it in that half-awake haze. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of that tiny eye watching me. A week passed, and life went on. I work from home as a writer, and my days are quiet, solitary. I try to keep myself busy, but every now and then, I'd find myself staring at that same patch on the wall, half expecting to see that eye again. Nothing, just plain old wallpaper. But then, the shadows changed. One night, as I sat hunched over my laptop in the early hours, I felt a strange sensation prickling the back of my neck, like I was being watched. I looked around my dimly lit room, letting my eyes adjust to the darkness. And there it was, a glimmer in the corner, low to the ground, barely visible in the faint glow of my laptop screen. This time, it wasn't one eye. There were two, small, dark, and unblinking. I froze, staring back at them, heart hammering in my chest. I thought it was a trick of the light, a reflection from something outside, maybe. But the eyes were too vivid, too real, locked onto mine with unsettling intensity. They didn't move, just stayed there, waiting. I slammed my laptop shut, plunging the room into complete darkness, and the eyes disappeared. When I finally worked up the courage to turn the lights back on, I told myself it was nothing, a stray thought, a product of sleep deprivation. But the feeling didn't go away. Over the next few days, I saw them everywhere. First, it was the corner of my bedroom. I'd be lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when my gaze would drift to the shadows. And there they'd be, two eyes, just watching, unblinking. Then I started seeing them in other parts of the apartment. I'd catch a glimpse of them from the corner of my eye, in dark spaces, the hallway, the coat closet, even beneath the kitchen table. Every time, I'd blink and they'd vanish, leaving me alone in the silence. I began losing sleep, lying awake, waiting for the eyes to appear, waiting for that creeping sensation of being watched. They never came closer, never moved. They simply stared, patient and unyielding, like they had all the time in the world. My nerves were shot, and my mind raced with questions. Why me? Why my apartment? What did they want? One night, desperate for sleep, I decided to face the eyes head-on. I waited until midnight, when the world outside was silent, and shut off all the lights in my apartment. I sat in the middle of the living room, my heart pounding as I let the darkness settle in. For a while, nothing happened. My eyes adjusted, and the shadows stretched and shifted around me. But there was nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. I started to feel foolish, wondering if I'd simply been seeing things after all. But then, in the corner of the room, the darkness deepened. A pair of eyes appeared, hovering just above the floor. Then, another pair appeared beside them, slightly higher. My stomach twisted as a third and fourth pair materialized. In the space of seconds, there were nearly a dozen pairs of eyes watching me, all at different heights and distances, blinking slowly in perfect unison. I couldn't breathe. I was frozen in place, my mind racing for some kind of explanation, some rational thought to ground myself. But nothing came, just a cold, sinking feeling of dread. And then, they spoke. It wasn't a voice, not in the way we understand it. It was a low, resonant hum, like a faint vibration in the walls. The sound grew, filling the room, wrapping around me like a blanket of static, until I could barely hear my own thoughts. My hands were shaking as I covered my ears, but the sound went on, undeterred, drilling into my mind. You called us? The hum seemed to say, each word sliding into my mind like an echo from somewhere deep beneath the floorboards. I wanted to scream, to deny it, but some part of me knew they were right. In those restless nights, lying awake, staring into the darkness, I'd felt this strange pull, like the shadows were reaching out to me, responding to my fear, feeding off it. I had somehow called to them, even if I hadn't meant to. I struggled to my feet, wanting to turn on the lights, to make them disappear. But something in the back of my mind whispered that the lights wouldn't help, that once I'd seen them, once they'd seen me, they could come back anytime they wanted. The eyes blinked, one by one, as if acknowledging my fear, savoring it. You are not the first, the hum echoed, a cruel sort of finality in the words. The shadows seemed to pulse and stretch, as though they were alive, shifting and writhing like something waiting to be released. I took a step back, my hands fumbling to find the switch on the wall. I felt cold tendrils of air brush against my face, cold as the grave, chilling me to the bone. The shadows around the eyes seemed to stretch, reaching toward me. The fear bubbling inside me was like a living thing, feeding them, calling them closer. My fingers found the switch, and I flicked it up. Light flooded the room, and the eyes vanished in an instant, leaving me alone, gasping in the silence. But that wasn't the end. The lights only bought me time. Now, I can feel them everywhere. When I turn off the lights, when I close my eyes, even in broad daylight, I can feel their gaze. They linger in the places the light doesn't reach, their eyes hidden just behind the shadows, patient and waiting. They've started leaving marks, subtle scratches in the walls, tiny indentations on the floors, as though they're carving a path into my world, inch by inch. I don't sleep anymore. I don't turn the lights off. I keep the bulbs on day and night, a futile shield against the darkness I know will one day come for me, no matter how long I try to hold it off. I can hear their whispers, faint and insistent, growing louder each night, as if they're waiting for me to make a mistake, to slip up, to let them in completely. I know I can't avoid them forever. They'll find a way back, through a forgotten shadow, a moment of weakness, a single blink. And when they do, I'll be ready. Ready to stare back into those eyes and, maybe, finally understand what they've been waiting to tell me.